Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Bradley, and this is
Things we wish we knew before we got married.
We're back.
So this is a new environment, B.
Yeah, so we kind of switched up a little bit to more of like a podcast type style. I think that we were just having to condense all of our tips into such like a short amount of time. It was really hard because we wanted to elaborate on stuff. So I think this will be really good for everyone to hear what we have to say about everything.
Honestly, it's just you like to talk a lot.
I do like to talk a lot. That's true.
And the lighting was awful outside. We'd always have to change how the lighting was because of the weather, if it's dark, if it's sunny. And I was sweating my butt off too. So
yeah, it was pretty hot out there. So definitely glad to be inside and just in a more like relaxed environment, and so we can just chat about all things wedding.
Speaking about all things wedding, what do you want to talk about today, B?
Well, I think the first thing we should talk about is why you should either meet your vendors or talk with your vendors on the phone before you book them, because I think a lot of people don't do that, and then they're surprised by the vendor on the day of the wedding. They don't get exactly what they're wanting or thought that they were getting. There's just so many things that you can't understand without having that phone call. So
what are some things that people need to ask their vendors on a phone call?
Well, I mean, obviously that changes from vendor to vendor, and we can speak on like photo and video, but I think the biggest thing that a lot of our clients don't understand is that you're spending so much time with your vendors on your wedding day, especially photo and video, and your coordinator and stuff like that. So you just don't realize how much time you spend with them. And so you really want to make sure that you like the people that are doing that, because if you don't, then it could really ruin your day, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we're like really cool.
Yeah, so cool.
I mean, we get along with just about anyone.
Yeah. I mean, what can we say?
But it's good to also know that, like, hey,
we're not everyone's cup of tea. We're not everyone's vibe. And, we always want to make sure that everybody is comfortable and having the best day ever. And so it's just like really good to get to know each other on that phone call. But you were asking about questions to ask. And I think something that you should definitely ask is, what all is your package including? Like, just because you see things written out on like a package list or something like that doesn't really explain everything. Like, a big question we get is, what is full day coverage? Because our package is full day coverage and we don't have an hourly set time limit.
Which I feel like a lot of people are all very hourly. Like, you got to pay a little bit extra if you're going to get 8 or 10 hours.
Right. Yeah. We definitely are in a small group of people, I think, that offer no hourly.
Yeah, we're just crazy.
We are a little crazy.
Well, what's a typical amount of hours you think that a couple needs?
I would say, I think like 8 hours is at the very minimum.
I agree.
But I think probably the typical average is 10.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to do getting ready photos and videos and really cover that full day. And then, a lot of photographers do fake leave out. So if you're trying to cut some time out, like, that would be a good way to do it. Just make sure like your DJ knows to tell everyone we're coming back. Because I think that can be really confusing. It can for
they do like
people.
To party, so.
But there are pros and cons to fake leave outs, which is that, the pro is that the old people that want to see you leave can leave after that. And then you can go back and you can dance and have fun. And, if you have some music that grandma doesn't really like, then that may be a good time for that versus, when the lady from your church is there.
I have seen some crazy grandmas out there.
Yeah, that's true. Some grandmas be getting down out there.
Yeah, to the classics.
Yeah. But, so I think minimum 8 hours for sure.
For sure. I agree.
I think you should also be asking, is your photographer going to help you with the timeline? How involved are they going to be with the planning process? Do they work well with videographers? We're a team. Luckily, we work well with each other. um,
Sometimes.
But, not every photographer has a videographer that they work with all the time. So, like, if you're wanting photo and video, do they work well together? Do they work well with the planner? Like, does everyone all mesh?
I do think, kind of going off of that, though, one thing that a lot of people overlook is like second shooters with both photo and video, and how in some cases when you have a pretty small venue,
Yeah,
it kind of gets a little crowded when you got like
that's
four
true.
people. I mean, you're like almost like a Kardashian, and you've got like paparazzi around you the
Yeah.
entire time, you know?
Yeah, it can be a lot. So, a lot of things to consider. And that's another question you can ask your photographer in that consultation. Like, do they have someone who usually second shoots with them? And what would that cost of that be? And do I really need a second shooter?
That's right.
So those are great things to be asking.
Do you think they need a second shooter?
I don't think you always need a second shooter, and that might be a controversial subject with some photographers. I personally think that I can do it by myself, but it just depends on the variety that you want. If you're doing a first look, or even if you're not doing a first look, that would be a good time to have a second shooter. That way you have one camera on each person at all times, either when you're doing the first look or when you're doing the ceremony and you're walking down the aisle. You can have one on the bride, one on the groom. That would be a good time. And honestly, just for like a second set of hands, I think it's really beneficial to have a second shooter, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary if you're fine with the photographer, switching back and forth between the two of y'all or stuff like that. Then I think it's okay. But
I do think that having a second shooter does help you for those photographers that do have those time restraints, like 8 hours,
true.
10 hours. Having that extra second shooter, they can go over to like the groom's suite while
Right.
one photographer is shooting the bride.
Right. Yeah. They could split time, which is very nice. So if you did want to shorten your day and get everything into that 8 hours, then like having one photographer with the girls, one with the guys, that would be a great time for a second shooter. But just make sure that the second shooter that you're choosing, you're not skimping on paying for that too, because there's a lot of new photographers out there and they love to second shoot to get experience. So, that's not a bad thing. Everyone has to start somewhere, but you just need to make sure you're communicating that you want someone with experience and you'd be willing to pay like a little bit more for that if you do split up, because you just want to be able to trust both of the photographers that are there. And hopefully your photographer is choosing someone who they trust and work with all the time as well.
Yeah.
So great question is, do you have a second shooter? Is that included? Is that extra? Another good one would be, what does an engagement session look like if you're booking engagements, or what's your deposit look like, and how do you make the rest of your payments? These are questions that we get all the time from people.
Yeah.
And I think they're just really good to ask about, because that way, up front, everything's transparent, what you're getting into. And like I said, just that phone call, getting comfortable with each other, getting to know each other's personalities. For us, we love talking to our couples about like their relationship and how they started, dating, and how long they've been dating, and how the proposal went, and like how the girls always sabotage it. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like every girl sabotages their own proposal, but
you even try to sabotage.
Okay, maybe I did a little
proposal.
bit, but I think I was pretty surprised.
You thought it was gonna be in Paris.
Yeah, I did, but yeah, you got me good, but
yeah, of course, I'm not gonna propose in the most romantic place in the world.
Why? Why would you do that?
I mean, seriously. I do want to say though, I think when you typically look for questions to ask, like your vendors, especially your photographers and videographers, like typically most people can go online, look up some questions to ask, and I feel like a lot of people always ask one question that we hear a lot, but I don't think it's always necessary.
Okay.
And that is, have you shot at this venue before?
Oh yeah, I do. We do get that question a lot.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's necessary
It
to always
doesn't
ask.
matter. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the people that do like destination stuff. I mean,
That's true.
we've gone out of state, different places, and obviously
There
never
are
shot
so
there.
many venues in Alabama, and you're right, going out of state. Something that you got to realize is that when we're going to a venue that we've never shot at before, we're going to do our research. We're going to go to the venue, look around, either whether that is getting there early on the day of, or, some people like to go beforehand. We're going to look on their website, on their Instagram. We're going to see what the venue looked like, what other photographers have used in the venue, to get a really good idea of like where we're going to do things that day. And, a lot of photographers even would be willing to go with you to the venue beforehand if you like really think that they need to see it before the day of. But I think the biggest thing you got to realize in all of this is if you don't trust your photographer, then you probably shouldn't be hiring them. You need to choose a photographer that you trust and a videographer that you trust, and all of your vendors. That goes for all your vendors.
Right.
You need to have that good trust with them.
I feel like most good photographers and videographers, like they'll always get there early anyway.
Yeah.
Just to kind of scope out where some good spots are to take pictures at. Like, I think that's super important. Like, if you're not getting there early, then, I mean.
For sure.
What are you doing?
I think another big thing that is important is just trying to like relieve a lot of your stress throughout this whole process. And that kind of goes back to getting to know your vendors before the day of the wedding. You're obviously going to be working with all these vendors beforehand to kind of curate this vision that you have for the wedding day, but it can be super stressful. And I think that just taking your time to get to know all of your vendors and really communicating with them what you want is going to create the best stress-free day that you can possibly think of.
That's right. I mean, that's the most important thing. You want a stress-free day.
Right, exactly. Like once you get to the wedding day, like what happens. And hopefully though, you spent the time with your vendors and your family and your friends kind of communicating what it is that you want like throughout the day, and it's going to be perfect. And I think that there's a few things that you could do to help like relieve the stress from that day. So like,
well, I think it kind of goes back to what exactly we were saying earlier about the number of hours that you're hiring your vendors for. I really believe just the more hours, the better. Not everybody's like us where we have like a full day coverage, but like honestly, if you paid a little bit extra, it's like, hey, it's not just like photo. Okay, do this. Photo. Okay, do this. It's a little bit more relaxed. You can take a breather, especially right before the ceremony, right? Because I mean, right before the ceremony, it's like, oh man, I'm about to get married. But if you're just so busy, it's just like so crazy,
Yeah, exactly. And, at a certain part of the day, you want to be kind of put away so you can kind of really just zone in and get ready for that like big ceremony, because it can be nerve-wracking to be in front of all those people, especially if you aren't like used to being the center of attention. But I'm just going to be honest, like I just feel like a lot of people don't realize that when you're walking down that aisle and your person is down there and you've been thinking about this moment forever, like everything else just fades away.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. Everyone's worried about like, well, where's this person going to stand, or, where the photographers are going to be or whatever. Right. And you're not going to care about any of that. You're not going to care about any of the people that are there. All you're going to want to see and do and think about is walking down that aisle to your person. And it really all just fades away, which brings me to the fact that, you probably won't remember some of the things of the day, which is why we're there. So you can remember all of it, because, it can go by kind of fast, but all of that stuff that you think about and worry about just kind of fades away when you're walking down the aisle. It's like the best thing ever. I think a big thing is, creating that timeline with your photographer and videographer and your planner A lot of photographers will create a timeline and then you give it to the planner, and then the planner will kind of loop it in with theirs, and then they'll kind of adjust to make it work for everybody. I think that giving that timeline to your family and your bridal party is like such a big thing that you can do. So they're not constantly asking you, well, what time do I need to be ready?
Yeah.
Or what time is this? Or what time is this? You can give them all this timeline beforehand and say, this is the timeline. You can look and see where your part is in it. And that way they'll know and they're not constantly bothering you all day.
I'd also tell your family members to get there.
Yeah, tell them to get there a little early, for sure. Someone is always late,
Always.
Which, like, I get it. I'm like,
you're late all the time.
I'm kind of late
on wedding days.
Except on wedding days when it's important. I'm there, but which, like, hopefully your family is on time. But a lot of people, take a little longer to get ready or whatever else. So I would tell them definitely to come a little bit earlier. But I think giving that timeline to your family and friends beforehand is like such a huge help. And obviously your planner will give it to all of your vendors, so like you don't have to worry about that. And I would definitely recommend having a planner. We kind of have just assumed this whole time that everyone gets a planner.
Not everybody has a
but
planner.
not everyone does. But we think at the very least you should probably get a day of coordinator, because once there's not one of those, then your photographer becomes the coordinator.
We also become the
coordinator. We can do a lot of things, but we can't coordinate all the other vendors as well. So like, if the cake doesn't show up, it's nice to have somebody there to call those people and be like, hey, where are you at? So I think we definitely want to stress, like, having a day of coordinator is worth the money for sure.
100%.
For sure.
If there's one thing I could give advice to, it's definitely that. I mean,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just having somebody to handle it. And that, again, stress-free. That's
exactly
what you want.
Yeah. I think another thing that we've heard a ton of couples tell us lately is that they are going on their honeymoon on the Sunday after.
Oh my gosh.
And they're all like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. We've had such a long day. And then we have to get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow to get on our flight to go on our honeymoon. We know, like, everyone's excited to go on their honeymoon, but you can go on Monday. Like,
and listen, I don't blame people because no one told us about this either.
No, exactly.
Like, we were the exact same way, where it's like right after we got married on that Sunday at 5 a.m. because it's the cheapest tickets on Southwest.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're basically getting no
Everyone's
sleep
gonna
night.
choose the 5 a.m. flight for sure. We get it. Yeah.
Which also kind of reminds me, what is the point? Like, why do all these airlines have like these 12 3s, 5 o'clock flights that I feel like nobody goes on because they're so expensive?
I don't know. I guess some people choose those, but
a little off subject, but I don't think that people should be going on the honeymoon.
Yeah,
at 5 a.m. the next day after the wedding.
For sure. Book your honeymoon for Monday. You'll thank us later. You will not realize how tired you're going to be after the wedding day. It's just such a long day. You're probably going to get home late, and then having to get up like 4 hours later and get on a flight to go on your honeymoon. Like, yes, you'll be at your destination earlier, but you're going to be exhausted. Like, you want it to be like so exciting and fun. You can still do something fun on Sunday, like, sleep in and then like do like a nice dinner, or like go have some wine at a winery somewhere. You can still do something fun, but you might wish that you were just hanging out, sleeping in a little bit, getting a little bit rest, and then getting excited to go on your honeymoon, get on that flight. It'll be so much more fun. And then that way, as soon as you get to your destination, then you can like start doing all the fun things, and you're not going to be like, oh, I just want to go like sleep in the bed or whatever else it is, and this beautiful location. You're gonna want to start like doing stuff. So
honestly, like, this is such something so overlooked. I mean, all the things that we're saying right here, we've made all these mistakes.
We went on our honeymoon Sunday morning at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely do as we say, not as we do.
That's right.
But
that's why we're over here talking to y'all about not doing this. So
yeah. So that's something that a lot of couples have been like, oh man, why did we do this? So decrease your stress by booking your honeymoon for Monday. And then also you don't have to pack for your wedding and your honeymoon before you go. It's just your wedding you have to worry about. And then you can start worrying about the honeymoon and pack on Sunday too. So,
I give a lot of couples props because, we've heard so many like stories of some of these couples where like they're buying a house and getting married and then going on the honeymoon all in 1 week. I mean, that is so much.
It's a lot going on at the same time.
Hey, props to you.
Yeah, for sure. Buying the house. We've had a lot of that lately, but it makes sense. That's kind of like the natural way of things. But, any other tips to help with like relieving the stress of the day?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's pretty much about it. Again, I think this is all stuff that we've all made ourselves. Like, we got married twice.
We did.
And the first one was in her parents' backyard, and we did not have a day of coordinator. And I'm pretty sure we coordinated
it was COVID. It was different. It was different.
We didn't have a planner or coordinator, and we were doing all that ourselves.
That's right. But we did have a planner for our second wedding. There was no divorce in the middle, guys, just so y'all are y'all know that.
Called it quits for a couple months and then decided to get married again.
That's not true. Y'all know our story probably. I know that we can't say like it's worth it to spend the money because we know everyone has a budget and you're like trying to stay within that budget, but just like hire people to do things. Don't get your family to do it because you want them to enjoy the day too and like be able to be there with you instead of like coordinating stuff. So just like obviously try and find stuff like in your price range, but we still think it's just like worth it to, spend the money on this sort of stuff. Because
if you're going to do the thing, do the thing.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's all we got for you this week. I think to really end this, guys, if y'all want to ask us any questions or if y'all have any crazy stories you want to tell us and you want us to talk about it, we'd love to talk about it. I think that would be a lot of fun. But really until then, I think I only have one thing left to say. It's just to live, love, and laugh. That's all we got.
Bye, y'all.